Imagine living in a time when ancient prophecies are no longer distant predictions but present-day realities. Israel, small, controversial yet undeniably significant, stands at the heart of some of the most remarkable prophetic fulfillments happening today. From its miraculous rebirth as a nation in a single day to the ongoing tensions that surround it, Israel is more than just a country. It's a divine signpost. What if the evidence of prophecy is unfolding right before our eyes? And what if those prophecies have direct implications for our future? In this video, we're diving deep into the events happening in Israel today, events that many believe are fulfilling Bible prophecies written thousands of years ago. We'll explore the undeniable connection between ancient scripture and modern history, and why the global spotlight on Israel might hold the answers to what's coming next for the world. So stick around, because what's happening in Israel right now could forever change the way you see the world, faith, and the future of humanity itself. Can a nation be born in a single day? This seems impossible, yet it happened. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared, and within hours, its Arab neighbors waged war. It was a David and Goliath moment. Israel was outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Yet, they survived. How? Isaiah chapter 66 verse 8 asks, "Can a country be brought forth in a moment?" For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people had been exiled, scattered across every corner of the world. But in one remarkable day, against all odds, a nation that had vanished from the map was reborn. Was this merely luck? Or was it the fulfillment of a prophecy that had been waiting for the right moment? Long before 1948, the prophet Ezekiel stood in a valley filled with dry bones. God asked him, "Can these bones live?" Ezekiel didn't know. But as Ezekiel watched, those bones came together. Flesh formed over them, and they stood as a great army. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 1 to 14. The dry bones represented the people of Israel, dead, scattered, and hopeless. But God promised he would breathe life into them and bring them back to their land. And in 1948, that promise came true. The Jewish people, long considered scattered to the winds, were suddenly reborn as a nation. The Valley of Dry Bones had come alive. Is this just coincidence, or is there something bigger at play? Could this be part of God's grand plan for the world? The prophet Jeremiah spoke of a time when Israel would experience a new kind of exodus, not from Egypt, but from all corners of the earth. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 14 to 15. This return, he said, would be so significant that it would eclipse the story of the first Exodus. And that's exactly what has been happening for over a century. Jews from Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and later the Soviet Union have been returning to Israel. In waves of migration, millions of Jews have made their way back to their ancestral homeland, a movement known as Aliyah. Could this mass return be part of a larger prophetic picture? Are we witnessing the hand of God at work, gathering his people from the four corners of the earth, just as Jeremiah foretold? From the moment of its rebirth, Israel has faced overwhelming odds. In 1948, 5 Arab nations declared war. Israel was outnumbered, outgunned, and isolated. But Israel won. This wasn't the last time Israel would face existential threats. In the decades since, Israel has endured multiple wars, terrorism, and constant hostility from its neighbors. Yet it survives and thrives. How is this possible? The Bible offers an answer. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3 tells us that in the last days, Jerusalem and Israel would become a burdensome stone for all nations, a source of conflict that no one could ignore. We see this today as the world continues to focus on Israel and its enemies gather around it. Could Israel's miraculous survival be a sign that God's protection is still over this nation? Is the tension we see in the Middle East part of a prophetic plan? For centuries, Hebrew was a dead language, spoken only in religious ceremonies, used only in written texts. No nation had ever revived an ancient language for daily use. Yet in modern Israel, Hebrew was brought back to life. Today it is spoken by millions, a living language that was resurrected alongside the nation itself. In Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 9, God promises to restore to his people a pure language. Is the revival of Hebrew a fulfillment of this prophecy? The return of the language, just like the return of the people, points to a deeper restoration. Israel isn't just a physical nation, it's a spiritual one, rising from the dust of history with its ancient identity intact. When the Jewish people began returning to Israel in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, much of the land was barren desert. But today, Israel is a world leader in agricultural technology. The desert quite literally blooms, a stunning fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 35 verse 1, which prophesied that the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. How did a land that was once desolate become so fertile? Israel has turned the wilderness into farmland and exported food to the world. Could this transformation be more than just human ingenuity? Could it be the hand of God making good on his promise? One of the most hotly anticipated events in prophecy is the rebuilding of the Third Temple. Though the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 AD, groups in Israel today are preparing to rebuild it, a move that has tremendous prophetic implications. Daniel chapter 9 verse 27 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 4 speak of a future temple that will play a crucial role in the end times. Many believe that the rebuilding of the temple is the next major prophetic milestone to watch for. Could we be living in the generation that sees this prophecy fulfilled? Are you ready to explore Israel's pivotal role in the end-time wars and the supernatural forces that will shape the final moments of human history? Throughout history, Israel has been at the center of conflict, but what if those battles are more than just political struggles? Could they be the very wars foretold in ancient prophecies? Next, we'll explore the connection between Israel and the end-time wars described in the Bible. Are we seeing the early signs of these events unfolding today? Stick around as we uncover the truth behind Israel's role in the final chapter of human history. First up is a battle unlike any other, the Battle of Gog and Magog. Imagine this: Israel, a nation living in peace, unsuspecting of the darkness gathering on the horizon. From the north, a massive invasion is on its way. Led by a mysterious figure called Gog, this coalition of nations, including modern-day Iran and Libya, will march toward Israel, their intent, total destruction. But here's where the prophecy takes a shocking turn. When it seems like Israel is about to be overwhelmed, God himself steps into the fight. Not armies, not nuclear weapons, no, this time it's earthquakes, fire raining from the sky, and a supernatural display of divine wrath. The world will watch in horror as God's enemies are annihilated before they can even touch Israel. Could we be on the verge of seeing this prophecy fulfilled in our time? Many believe this war could break out before the tribulation even begins. And if it does, it will serve as a terrifying reminder of what happens when the nations rise against God's chosen people. But that's just the beginning. The real nightmare comes at the end of the tribulation, at the battle everyone has heard about, but few truly understand, the Battle of Armageddon. Picture this: the Antichrist, the embodiment of evil, has risen to power. He has unified the armies of the world, and they're marching toward one final showdown. Where? In the Valley of Megiddo, right in the heart of Israel. This is it, the climax of all human rebellion. As the armies converge, their mission is clear: to wipe Israel off the map and to eliminate every trace of God's people. But just when all seems lost, something impossible happens. The sky cracks open, a figure on a white horse descends, with the armies of heaven following behind. It's Jesus Christ, returning not as the humble servant, but as the conquering king. In one stroke, he decimates the armies of the world, defeats the Antichrist, and establishes his kingdom on earth. Armageddon isn't just a battle, it's the ultimate collision between good and evil, with Israel caught at the center. And when the dust settles, it will be Jesus who reigns from Jerusalem. Before we reach that final battle, there's another prophetic war that shakes the very foundations of the earth: the siege of Jerusalem. In the book of Zechariah, it's written that all the nations of the earth will gather to attack the city of Jerusalem. Imagine the chaos, the capital of Israel, surrounded by enemies on every side, the people inside the city outnumbered, facing certain destruction. But God has a plan. He promises to make Jerusalem a cup of trembling for all nations. As these enemies gather, something incredible happens. The very ground they stand on begins to tremble. The Mount of Olives splits in two, creating an escape route for the people of Israel. And once again, just when all hope seems lost, God himself intervenes, striking down the armies that dared to rise against his holy city. This siege is more than just a war. It's a cosmic event that signals the end of the old world order. And it's the final moment before Jesus returns to Jerusalem to take his place as the rightful King of Kings. As the tribulation reaches its height, another war will rage. This time, it's not just a physical battle, but a spiritual one. The war against the saints. Revelation chapter 13 verse 7 tells us that the Antichrist will be given authority to wage war against God's people, Jews and Gentiles who refuse to worship him. It will be a time of unimaginable persecution. Christians and Messianic Jews will be hunted down, tortured and executed for their faith. But here's the twist. In the midst of this darkness, something miraculous happens. A remnant of Israel turns to their Messiah, Jesus Christ. Romans 11 promises that in these days, all Israel will be saved, even as the Antichrist tightens his grip. A powerful revival will sweep through Israel, and the Jewish people will finally see the one they pierced and mourn for him. This war against the saints will be brutal, but it will also mark the turning point for Israel's redemption. Now, if you thought Gog and Magog was a one-time event, think again. After Jesus' 1,000-year reign, there's one last shocking twist in the story, the final revolt of Gog and Magog. After being bound for 1,000 years, Satan will be released, and he will deceive the nations one last time. This time, the armies gather to surround Jerusalem, their final target. But they won't get far. Fire from heaven will rain down and consume them before they can strike. This marks the ultimate end of rebellion, as Satan is cast into the lake of fire for eternity, and God's kingdom is fully established. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the prophetic battle surrounding Israel and want to stay updated on more intriguing topics like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video and share it with others who are curious about biblical prophecy. Your support helps us spread the message and reach more people. Thank you for being a part of our community.